everybody, this is Mark from the Geek Church here, and for today's show, we got something really special. We have a special guest. This is Sanan Kolva. Yeah. Why don't you tell them about yourself, Sanan?
I'm Sanan Kolva. I write epic fantasy, steampunk fantasy, and post-apocalyptic fantasy. As well as in my day job, I'm a technical editor.
That is sweet. Okay, that's very cool. Okay, so these 6 books here,
Yep.
they've been written by you. And I thought it would be best if we just kind of, I've written books too, so I think it'd be good if you promote your work here. So here's what I'm going to do. I know you've written this first series. What's this called?
So this is The Chosen of the Spears. We've got 3 books so far. I'm currently working on the 4th one.
Okay. And how many books is that going to be in total? Do you know?
Probably 6 or 7.
No, hey. Okay, we're not even sure, are we? Hey, that's fine. It's totally fine.
We'll see how it goes, because when I originally wrote them, books 1 and 2 were book 1, books 3 and 4 were book 2. So.
Dang. Okay, we obviously got some things. Hey, couldn't you just token that up a bit and shove 2 books together and call it good? Well, maybe we're not going to do that. So, okay. All right. Well, we like.
I feel like they actually ended up having a better flow when I split them apart.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to be very honest with you, son. Here, I read the first book, The Shrouded Sky. Here's what I remember about the plot, and honestly, I thought this plot was pretty good as far as the. But basically, like, for some reason, the night sky is all shrouded, and there's people that can read the stars, but because the night skies are all shrouded, people can't read the stars anymore. That actually is a pretty cool idea for any fantasy book, and I don't really. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to tell me about this series, and with no spoilers, and I'm going to give you a minute to hype it. This is an elevator speech.
All right.
So
I can give you the one-sentence elevator pitch for the series.
Oh, yeah,
which is an astrologer has to work with the traditional enemies of his people to find an ancient magic artifact, break a curse, and prevent the release of an insane god.
Oh my gosh. Okay. First of all, I'm sold. Okay, I got that, and I got like 3 books of this that I can read right now of this series.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me about the hero of this book, or the protagonist.
So the protagonist is like I said, an elven astrologer named Lian,
Okay.
and he, as you mentioned, when we start out the story, the sky at night continually is covered with clouds, so he can't do his job. He can't read the stars. And while just out in the forest, he has a chance encounter with some travelers and gets caught up in their quest, ends up joining them, and although one might say he is one of the less well-equipped people to go on an adventure, a little like one might say that Bilbo Baggins wasn't exactly, the adventuring type.
No, you don't want to have like your hero. It's like, oh, adventure, no problem. Come on, you don't want to do that. So yeah.
He is the scholar. He is the guy who's like, well, I know that when you're holding the spear, the pointy end goes towards the other guy.
Okay. Yeah. This is the spear. This sort of artifact that he's looking for. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, I gotta admit,
there are two spears of the stars. So it's the chosen of the spears.
Okay.
And they're both very powerful sentient magical items.
Dang, man. Okay. Most would go for swords. You went with spears. I know. I kind of went like, yeah, this is different here. The spear is underrated. It's about time the spear got its comeuppance here.
Exactly.
It's like,
everybody goes for magic swords.
Yeah. Come on, you can throw a spear, but a sword not so well, man. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Actually, that is another point. Is that a spear is a lot more useful by a lot of people without a lot of training.
Okay, all right. So, so we're 3 books in this thing so far. And let's see, now from what I remember, okay, is the main character, is it Lian?
Yeah, Lian.
Okay. Is that an elf character?
Yes.
Okay, I remember that there was like an elf in this. And then you said that they have to kind of team up with the enemies of their people?
Mm-hmm.
So like the enemies of the elves?
Yeah, there's a country that these elves have been kind of in conflict with.
Okay.
And that's where these travelers that he encounters are actually from. He doesn't realize that on first meeting. because he's never personally encountered them before.
Okay, this sounds actually kind of okay. This is a good summary of what this is. Okay, if you like stuff like this, then let's see. If you were to compare this work to something like if you like a certain work, would you?
So this is epic fantasy, quest adventure. I've said I compared it to kind of a Tolkien-ish type of adventure with a lot less purple prose.
Yeah.
I don't spend 3 pages describing a tree.
Yeah, thank you. And there's also the aspect of the quest, the journey
Yes.
that they're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of these fantasy books are the. Oh yeah. Hey, while you're here, I mean, we're going to talk about fantasy a lot. But I have to admit, I have to really think of, when I think fantasy, yeah, you think Tolkien, you think stuff like that. How would you describe what fantasy is? Like if I go and I say it's always grouped with sci-fi / fantasy. So
I feel like, I mean, there are different times when the sci-fi fantasy border can be very fuzzy.
heck yeah, so
yeah, so I just think of fantasy as there's going to be elements of the story that are elements generally of the world that are not something that would be possible in our world.
Okay.
Generally.
Yeah.
That gets explained in some way or another as magic. And it may or may not have other races. You can certainly have fantasy that is all humans.
Yeah. Usually, but yeah, elves, dwarves,
Kind of you have some of the classic Tolkien races, the classic Dungeons and Dragons races.
Yeah, D&D rules, man.
Yeah.
You just kind of go like, oh, D&D rules, and you just kind of go with that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And that's going to be, especially with your epic fantasy, that's going to be kind of a lot of what you see.
So yeah, and that I think kind of sells it for me as far as it's what most people think of when they think of that so much. Later on in the show, we're going to be asking about some of our favorite fantasy stuff, and we're talking movies, TV shows, and books. And I'm pretty sure you probably read more fantasy books than I have. So we're just going to do it then. Okay, on to the next topic.
All right.
Is it the Ghost and the Guardian?
Ghost and Guardian.
Ghost and Guardian. Okay. Okay. Why don't you tell me about this? And now, this is a series of 5 novellas, right? That you sandwiched into this particular one thing.
Chunky book.
Yeah, feel free to. Don't worry. We'll put a close up. We'll do something in post on that one to make that obvious. Yeah. So okay. So all right. Tell me, and this series is done, right?
Yes.
Oh, how did that feel when you finished that?
Very good, huh? Very good, yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll bet you anything. And you don't intend to have like an epilogue book, or you don't intend to do anything more?
Yes and no.
Okay.
With the characters and the setting in this book, no.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's fine if you want to like write something else that takes place in this other realm. I'm okay with that. But just for gosh sake, I don't need another Star Wars. I don't need another.
No, and by the time we get to the end of this book, I feel like it's time. I need to give these characters a break. I need to let them rest. They need to heal from everything that's happened in this book.
I think everything you're doing I like. So we're gonna go with that. Now, as far as okay, all right. Why don't you tell me the basic setup?
Yeah. Okay. So Ghost and Guardian is a post-apocalyptic fantasy.
Oh. So in the future?
It's sort of it's still not on Earth. But you sort of see it's like a near future setting. Okay. The world has been ravaged by war. That's our apocalypse. Was basically a war that, took out left a lot of the land as wasteland. Okay. Nuked a lot of civilization as we know it.
So they had nuclear weapons. So yeah. Okay. So kind of like a Mad Max-ish.
Kind of a Mad Max-ish sort of world.
All right. Okay.
And so our main character is a several thousand-year-old elf who is trying to, survive, find his family and his friends, and deal with his own PTSD issues that have resurfaced with the entire destruction of his whole support system. Okay,
that's a different kind of bend to how I usually think of these post-apocalyptic things. Usually that's not the whole PTSD aspect. Usually those people with PTSD are dead. No, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's usually, if you've seen Furiosa, then you know they actually do deal with this aspect of this. And even Fury Road kind of touches upon it. But
I feel like a lot of times when you have a post-apocalyptic setting, most of the time the PTSD issues people are dealing with are an immediate result from the apocalypse. The stuff he's dealing with is actually from much further in his past.
Oh crap! Yeah, then shoot, that would be something that you gotta deal with. Yeah, I mean, actually, I think if the world were to blow up, I probably wouldn't be thinking like, you know what, I never did get over this. But then again, I mean, so we're looking at post-apocalyptic settings. How many years has it been since the fall, or we got this
I'm going to say it's about 30, 40 years, if I remember correctly.
So a whole generation has come and gone. That's fine.
So we start out the story from, so each, like I said, there's 5 parts, and each part has a different point of view character.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So our first point of view character is a young 18-year-old girl.
Okay.
And she basically has to escape from the people that she's been traveling with and gets rescued by our main character.
Okay, so, alright, and then what happens after that?
So there's kind of her getting settled, her discovering that he calls himself an elf, and she's pretty sure he's insane.
Okay.
Because there are, like, rumors, old stories, old myths about elves and magic and stuff like that, but it's like, everybody knows those are just old, those are about as real as grim fairy tales are.
Sure. Okay. If I have someone to say they were an elf, even now, that would of course.
Exactly.
Even after an apocalypse, I'd be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we have those.
Sure you are, dude.
But yeah. Now, honestly, here's the thing: in a post-apocalyptic movie, and when you do them like 30 years, there's always those characters where stuff that we know now that is everyday has become myth. I don't know, like what's a good example? Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. These kids didn't know. They didn't know what an airplane was, but they had this very drawn out like mythology of what they thought
of how we got here.
Yeah, of what happened. And are there elements of that in here?
Not as much. There's been kind of enough, at least in the places we encounter, enough preservation of some stuff to kind of keep an idea of what used to be.
Alright.
A lot of it is like not attainable anymore.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. So there's technology in this world here. Do characters like drive around and like cool, because post-apocalyptic thing, you can't have it without the cool vehicles and just like that. Also,
well, since we don't really have gas refineries.
Oh, okay. This world didn't really have that kind of.
Well, we don't. They're not anymore.
Okay.
And at least not in the area where we are.
Well, people in post-apocalyptic, they always find gas.
Hey, I did some research on this one to figure out, because there is one point where they do actually have vehicles available to them.
Oh, sure.
And I did some research as to, what are actual fuel sources you can use, especially if you don't necessarily care about long-term engine integrity.
No, you
can absolutely use alcohol.
Okay. Then, yeah, there's probably a lot of boozing up people there and trying to do that. Okay.
Find those crazy moonshiners out in the isolated areas.
Okay, so alright. Okay, this looks like a pretty interesting story then. Okay, are there any magic elements without
Yes, so the elves are innately have some magical abilities. It leans more towards almost telepathic psychic abilities.
I like that. We have elves in a post-apocalyptic world. I have never seen that before, and now I want to see it every time. Let me tell you something about that. Okay, you know what? I gotta be reading this thing. Okay. I'm gonna veer away from that because I want to talk about something that I have read, which is Winterlight. This one I read a few months ago and prompted me to make this episode because this is a really good book. And unlike this time, I'm going to do the summary now. Hopefully I'm going to do a thing. And don't worry, I'm not going to reveal any plot points. But I'm going to give you the basic setup of this book. Now, imagine if you've seen fantasy, stuff like that, there's usually magic. What if you could take that magic and put it on a grid? And essentially you have magic power lines that go through to help heat your homes and light your lights. that's what has happened in this book. Magic is essentially like, they sucked all the coolness out of magic, haven't they? That's really what I got. That's actually what I got from this book, was like, they're past the point where this is even impressive anymore. That it is just a thing that is just there. You know, I can imagine when Thomas Alva Edison discovered maybe Ben Franklin discovered electricity, but when Thomas Alva Edison created the light bulb and stuff like that, we're past the point like, ooh, a light bulb. You know,
just like,
yeah,
wait,
now it's like,
the light switch
crap,
working?
why isn't this working? And so essentially this is a society that is, this is a world that's very well fleshed out. There are elves in it, and of course the bourgeoisie, because of course usually the elves are the bourgeoisie in these things. And that's fine, because this is kind of a steampunk sort of influence, because the magic and power stuff, like it can make mechanical horses. Yeah, that's a thing that exists in here. And if you think this is one of those books that throws a lot of things at you. It's a mix of a lot of great stuff, like say, film noir. It has a mystery element. It has a buddy cop sort of thing, because the main character has to investigate these power outages, because they happen here too, because apparently magic is about as dependable as electricity, and for some reason or the other. It takes a little while before you realize how this world really works, and because I don't want to reveal too much about the sources of magic here, because I don't really think that's as important as how this power structure and how this grid has been created. You know, I was talking to Sanan here about the movie Chinatown, and actually how it reminded me of that. How it was, she didn't even realize she was like homaging something, but she did it. And that's fine.
Now I'm going to have to watch this movie to see it.
Oh yeah, but essentially, yeah, in this particular case, the main character, who's really a nice guy, just kind of works for the factory, and but he comes from a really rich family. You know, he's told like, hey man, we're getting power outages, we don't know why, we need you to investigate, and we want to pair you up with some guy who we know has caused power shortages in the past, because this is a 48-hour/Zootopia plot, okay? That's, okay, I'm not bad-mouthing it because that is. Here's the thing, you can do that plot really well. This is essentially Rush Hour or a buddy cop kind of thing, and I'm going like, and when these two characters get together, which is Alistair and what's the other?
Onyx Flame.
Tyrion Onyx, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they have some really fun banter together, and they work together to, well, solve the case, which is what you want to do. And here's the thing. Okay. Is there anything I left out there, Sanan?
That's a pretty good one. Yeah. No.
Okay, yeah. Now I read this book, and honestly, it's a very quick read, and it shows Sanan's skill as a writer has grown quite immensely. I mean, what is this? Like, how many books is this now? Like, this is your most latest book.
Yep.
How many we have this?
So I've got 6 books out now.
6 books. Oh man, okay, that's a lot. Okay, that's more novels than I got. We'll get to that promotion later. Maybe. This is, we're promoting Sanan here, not me. If I wanted to promote me, I'd just do a show about me, and I've done that several shows about me, so who cares? Okay, so let's talk about the sequel here, which I haven't read yet, but believe me, I'm gonna. And this one, Runefrost,
Yes.
is a sequel here. Oh, hello. Hey, on the cover here, I have not, this is the first time I've really looked at the cover here. This is Alistair, right?
Yes.
May I ask, who is this?
So that is Saskia, his wife.
Aha! That's right, because, okay, here's the thing. Maybe you should talk about this, because I don't want to get into any spoilers of this first book by talking about the second book. Okay, so go ahead and hold your book and talk about it for a little bit.
Alright, so with Runefrost is set about a year after the end of Winterlight, and we get, so Alistair has continued with his career. He's now been tasked with doing a lot of the setup and such for the Crown Prince's Grand Exhibition, which was an idea actually drawn from a Great Books course I listened to on the life and times of Prince Albert, who, if you're not familiar with, that is Queen Victoria's husband.
Yes.
And one of the things he did was he was the driving force behind the first World's Fair.
Oh, okay.
So I basically stole the idea of the first World's Fair, and we're doing that now.
Okay.
And the Crown Prince is...
That's kind of awesome, actually. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense that this world would have a World's Fair, actually. Yeah, okay. That's something that was not really touched upon in this book, but they would have a world. I guess that would make sense, because they're kind of in an industrial revolution.
Yeah, they're in the Industrial Revolution. This country is kind of the lead cutting edge of industry, of technology, and boy, do they want to show it off to everybody else.
Oh, yes. Okay.
They want everybody to know they're best.
All right.
So he's got that going on, and we also get a lot more with actually his family, his origins, where he came from. We see more of them.
I actually wanted to see a bit more of that. It was touched upon in the first book, but you never really knew where they were. Oh, that's right. These people can make phone calls, can't they?
That's to a degree.
Yeah,
It's like
I didn't notice
more
that.
like you have walkie-talkies.
So they have like ham radios.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's each of the devices is keyed to one other. You can't just use it for. I can't call you and then call my mom and then call my brother at the same device.
But they're getting there. I think they're probably getting into Bell's invention here. I think that might work out pretty well. Okay. So what's kind of the main?
The main problem is he gets called home. He finds out that his parents have discovered. So he comes from a privateer family.
Arr.
Yeah. they're only pirates if you aren't their country's allies.
Yeah, I know. There's pirates in this thing. But I didn't see any pirates in this. I was not disappointed, but I knew that was going to happen. So,
yes. So one of the things they do is, okay, technically there is a navy for the country, but really the privateers are much more effective as the navy goes than.
Okay.
So if you want somebody who is going to be stopping the smuggling going on, you want somebody who's kind of making sure things are on the level under the surface, they're the guys who are going to be, the privateers are the guys who are going to be doing that.
Okay.
And they have recently encountered some unusual smuggling that they've stopped some of it, but they're pretty sure that more things have gotten into the country, and it seems to be related to things that Alistair works on in his actual career as a
smuggling, you say?
magical power engineer.
Wait a second. So are we talking like magic stuff? Are we smuggling some magic stuff? Oh, we might get into some spoilers there, because
I will neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, that's fine. And yeah. So, all right, okay.
And we also will get the return of some characters from the first book.
Yes,
who
we need them.
Disappeared off the page at the end of the book.
We're not going to get into that kind of thing, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Wait,
you know some of them.
Yeah, I did.
Some may surprise you.
Okay, I'm going to be pretty surprised by this. So let me ask you something, Simon. Do you have a long-range plan for this series? Like, is this gonna go to is there some arc that you're trying to form?
Yes, this one will probably be 6 books so.
Probably 6 books. So, okay, well, I guess we're a third way through it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. Yeah, I definitely think that's cool, because I think this world really needs to be, if this world can be even more fleshed out, then it's going to be very much something that I would want to see 6 books on.
Yeah. So like the next book in this series, when I start working on it, is we're going to be seeing more of the bigger part of the world. We're going to kind of move beyond. Like the first 2 books have been very focused on the capital city, essentially, of this country.
Yeah.
And in the 3rd book, we're actually going to be seeing some more interactions with like other countries, other nations, other powers.
Yeah, you could do a lot with that, and especially if they start going. Because here's the thing: there's this new power source. This could easily create a lot of tension and make nations go to war over it. So if you are going toward that direction, I applaud that. That gets really complicated.
That actually, interestingly, does touch on one of the things that comes up in this book.
Okay, we're not going to...
Which is okay, because you didn't know about that.
We don't want to reveal that, but we don't want to reveal it even unnecessarily. For example, like if I were to read this book and go like, oh, I know who did it. I'm sure it's like, yeah, but it's nice. The whole point is to get to the discovery of that. Okay. Is there anything more you want to say about this book? Because it's, I'm going to read it because I read the first one. I was totally fascinated by this world.
Well, I had a lot of fun writing this book. If you want me to touch on a little bit about the writing process for this book.
Well, we're going to get more into questions here, but I want to take a quick break here. So. All right, so now let's get some more questions about this. So, Sanan, when did you realize that you wanted to write fantasy?
Ooh. Well, it's been one of my favorite genres to read, so I feel like that naturally led into writing it. I've been writing stories in some degree or another since I was 5.
Oh,
I still have some of those stories. They are adorably horrible.
That's fine. That's I think we all have a writer's cringe.
As a 5-year-old story is liable to be, you know.
It should be. If it was too good, I'd be suspicious.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I read a lot of fantasy, and it's kind of where my brain goes as far as the kind of stories I like to tell.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. You know, it's actually because I worked with Sanan when we first met, and when she told me she wrote fantasy, I was like, oh, maybe you should give me some of your work to look at. And I read The Quest for the Thornfall Guardian.
Yes.
Is that, do you ever want to make that?
It's gonna need some help.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, there's a lot of works I've abandoned because it's like, yeah.
No, I wouldn't say I've totally abandoned that one. I still have some ideas of things I would like to, if I were to go back to that one, by the time I was done with it, like the base shell of the story, like the idea of the story would still be there, but it would be a completely rewritten.
Well, the title's awesome, I can tell you that much. And I thought the world was pretty fleshed out and incredibly imaginative. Like, there were things in it that I thought, okay, I can easily visualize this, and I really enjoy the idea of this thing.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, like, wow, okay, somebody's either played a lot of D&D or they just have an incredibly great imagination and they just kind of made it work. So
so that particular story, when I started it, I started with 2 base ideas, and that was the kind of the classic, someone finds a baby on their doorstep, an abandoned child on their doorstep, and someone decides to build a tower on the back of a giant turtle.
Yeah, man, dude, come on. I'm gonna read the second one of that. I'm sorry, no offense. The other one's been done to death.
But those are the two idea elements that started that story.
Okay, yeah. All right, so okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, hey, I mean, when you supported me when I first wrote my first book, I got to give you like full total support on what you got here, because it's very clear you've obviously sprouted this a lot. The fact that you've got like 6 books now and you've got more that you're working on right now is definitely a sign that you are going to probably go to your grave with like a library full of this stuff. And that's good that you have this going on here. So, so where do you think you get these ideas that you have for your work?
Honestly, I feel like finding ideas isn't really so much the problem as figuring out which ideas are good and which ideas are good to play with.
Okay.
I've gotten ideas, like I've gotten some short stories and anthologies as well. I have gotten ideas for a short story from a YouTube video of some kayakers out on the ocean, and a seal swims up, kind of comes out of the water, smacks a guy in the face with an octopus, and swims off.
You know, I've never had a day like that, but I mean, if I did, I definitely would post that video.
So I've built a story off of that. I have had a story that was inspired literally by a banner ad in a game, in like a mahjong game on my phone.
Oh, sure. That's that's fine. You should do that. I mean, you never know what's.
Yeah. So,
you never know what
that
right.
idea turned into the idea of a temple to the volcano goddess that is also a casino.
I'm kind of loving that idea, honestly. But
that's another of my short stories.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm not really gonna use this as a. I mean, okay, if go to Sanan's site to see, like, this is more than just Sanan's works here, these books. Although that would, we are gonna cover that here. But yeah, Sanan's done quite a bit of stuff, and when you're an author, you do a lot of novels and short stories as well to make things meet there and stuff.
yeah, for figuring out whether an idea for a story, especially for a novel, whether it's going to go anywhere for me, oftentimes I find that if I've written, say, 20, 30, 40 pages of this story, and I don't already have ideas for like the second book, the third book, scenes from the fourth book written out on a post-it somewhere, then that idea is probably not going to go anywhere.
Then I think that's very acceptable as far as what needs to happen with your writing process. Hey, speaking of writing process, like how many hours of a week do you spend writing and stuff like that?
It'll vary from week to week. Like I have a regularly meeting writing group that meets on Monday evenings, so that's like 3-4 hours there, definitely on Monday evenings, and then I try to do some during the rest of the week as well. I have a critique group that meets twice a month, so I need to have a chapter ready for them each time.
Wow, okay, that is very good.
So which is really good for me because deadlines are actually really helpful for me.
No, that's fine. Deadlines are, yeah. I mean, as far as like, hey, I can get. For me, it's like whenever there's a deadline, when it's not looming, it's like, nah, let's just do some stuff. And then and then the real work happens like when the deadline is really starting approaching. Then it's like, why? And then of course you're going like, why can't I work out the scene? And then you just kind of do it, and then it's kind of like, sometimes you're kind of like, well, that filled the requirement. There are other times it's like, that doesn't really strike me really hard with anything, but yeah. So that's pretty good. Hey, we should probably talk about any future works you got. I mean, okay, we've already discussed, we got more books on this series.
Yep, we're working to this series.
And we got more books on this series coming. Do you have any other series you're working on that you really want to get into? Or?
So another probably like one that will be related to Ghost and Guardian. Ghost and Guardian is a complete story. At the end of it, the characters need a break. I'm not gonna write a sequel to Ghost and Guardian.
Okay.
However, I do have an idea that would be using the same characters actually at an earlier point in time.
That's a good idea.
That actually involves alternate timelines and having our main character actually gain an ability to move between into alternate timelines.
Okay, that gets very complicated.
It does get very complicated,
and it's kind of being overdone now.
and it does mean that I have the fun of writing a story in which the main character, multiple side characters, and one of our antagonists are in fact the same character.
I'm gonna just go on a whim and say that sounds like that could work. I think you could do that. I think you could actually do a book where that. I'm pretty sure that's already been done because let's face it, everything's already been done.
Yeah.
So.
But there's a lot of backstory and events that the characters went through that gets like maybe lightly alluded to in Ghost and Guardian that I know because some of these characters at least, came out of a role-playing game that I was doing with a friend.
Okay.
That we actually took these characters through multiple generations.
Okay.
And so a lot of things happened.
Okay. That's actually okay. Do you have any let's see, like do you have a project that's not related to these books that you've already pitched and are working on that?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
There's a lot of, I've got like a lot of just ideas that are kind of floating around in my head. A lot of things that I've maybe written like a scene or two or something like that.
Okay.
That I may pick up at some point. I may not.
No, hey, every writer kind of has stuff like that they work with and stuff. As far as future projects, do you have any deadlines coming out that you kind of need, or do you have any times where it's like, I think we're going to release this book by this time or something?
Not yet. Like I said, I'm working on the fourth book of this series. I hope to have it done next year, but I'm not going to make any solid promises that it will definitely be done next year.
All right, are you going to do that? Like flip from that book to series to this book series and just kind of...
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Okay.
I mean, to a point, this one took several years, and false starts.
Yeah, it feels very well fleshed out, and when I've seen something that's well fleshed out, it usually means it had a lot of drafts. And there are usually stuff that just didn't work, and that you just kind of have to just abandon, give up, and then kind of like...
Yeah, yes, what was originally going to be book 2 between these 2 books.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
Yes, I killed an entire book.
You killed a book? Oh my gosh. No, that's fine. You should do that. It's a terrible thing to do, though.
It was terrible, it was painful, and it had to happen. Because I was 100 pages into that book and realized that I was still setting up for things to start happening.
Yeah, maybe,
That's...
maybe we should... That can be very hard, Sanan, but you as a writer had to grow because of that. You've learned how to write really well, and part of the thing about learning writing really well is eventually saying, you know what, this sucks, we can simplify this a whole lot much.
Yeah.
And then you realize, then you do like 1 hour's worth of work and kill 24 hours worth of work.
Mm-hmm.
But then that 1 hour does shine a lot because, hey, you put something into it. You build a background there. You know it's like, okay, now that's so simplified, where it's like, I mean, you know how this is in books, where it's like a character has to get from point A to point B. Now, you can actually tell the story of how they get to point A to point B, but if that's not really exciting, just start them off at point B and just say, okay, they got there. Yeah. That's it. You don't have to be like...
And we traveled for 3 days. Now we're here.
Yeah. They get in a covered wagon. Oh no, the horses are like all jittery. Who cares about details like that? Now granted, real life is like that.
Yes.
And sometimes you can do that to make it more lifelike, but if you just make it so lifelike, it's like, why am I even reading a book? I could be doing this right now.
Well, it's like, if nothing that's going to develop either the plot or the characters happens during that chunk of time, we don't need to see that chunk of time.
Right.
But if you want to use that chunk of time to like develop character relationships, then that'll be hopefully interesting.
Yeah, I mean when
Unless
Tyrion
nobody
and like
cares about
Alistair
those
were, we're just talking. I was like, I didn't even care oftentimes about what they were talking about. They would usually just kind of banter about crap, and it's like, yeah, you can make that work sometimes. To a certain degree, you can, but if you, to really hinge that, I mean, I've seen a lot of films where they think like this is where you think like you're watching something and going like, this is not as funny as you think it is, and you just gonna have to go like, yeah. It's like, you really this. Oh yeah. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I think I pretty much know you pretty well here. Do you want to talk about like just your basic background, where you're from? I mean.
Yeah. So I'm from here. Grew up here. Left for college. Came back again.
We're in Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington. Yes.
Noticing any. I don't even know how you even know that. You're like watching this video. Would you?
I mean, can't you tell from this light white wall?
I know, yeah. Surely. I don't want to knock too loud. The dog will probably start walking. Start barking. Yeah. So, okay, yeah, we're in Eastern Washington. So, yeah, from this area. Did you go to WSU?
Nope. I went halfway across the country to Michigan for college.
Oh, really? Shoot. So
I grew up here. I didn't want to also go to college here.
Okay, that's fine. So, okay. Well, you obviously came back and worked at, the job that you've got now. I'm not certain if I can mention that. Maybe you don't want that. Yeah. We can always edit that out later. Because we're pretty smart. But the editing looks a little choppy. It looks like this.
I'm fine with saying that I currently work as a technical editor at an electrical engineering company.
That is awesome, and that's all we're going to say about that. So if anybody has a problem with that, you can write me, because I'm not going to read your letter, because seriously, you can send me an email, right? Or you can leave a comment if you like. You can do that. Sometimes I read those things. But don't troll us for crying out loud in the comment section. Jeez, come on. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I know that, as a writer or as someone who's written books, I've always dreamed about being in one of those panels, like a Comic-Con or something like that. People ask me questions and I have to talk about stuff. Let me just pretend like I'm one of those guys. You're at Comic-Con, you've written like the latest thing. Actually, maybe this might be a good thing. Okay, okay, here's this. Okay, Sanan, I'm big Hollywood. And I've read your I've skimmed your books
Okay,
because I'm
yeah.
a Hollywood producer and I don't have time for that. But I looked at the cover and thought, that's going to be my next movie. And so I come up to you and go like, I want to totally franchise the hell out of you and your works. How would you feel about that?
If we're talking like a 2-hour movie,
Yeah.
that'd be pretty. I would not as much want to see my books as movies as I would want to see them each book as like a season on, you know, like a Netflix series where we have, you know, 12 episodes to get through the things and are just, you know, chopping piecemeal and shoving things together.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna make it like
make the story take out half of the, you know, important elements of the story and all the secondary elements of the story to try to make it fit into this.
Yeah, actually, honestly, that's one of the things I do like about the whole streaming era is because you can, episodes don't have to be a certain amount of time, so you can just put in the stuff you want to put that. It makes it awkward for trying to, because I kind of feel like they try and make these episodes a self-contained story, but it oftentimes doesn't really work that way. So really what you're watching is like, so like if you watch, say, a show that's like 6 episodes, honestly, I was watching a show the other day that I felt like, okay, it's very obvious I'm supposed to watch these 6 episodes and binge watch this whole thing because it just kind of ends. I mean, they try their best to end it on some sort of cliffhanger or end it on something like that.
Yeah.
And hey, as you know, when you write a book with chapters, that's how you're supposed to end a chapter. It's like, hey, something happens, like, and then such and such came in the room, and then it's like, oh man, I get
Chapter break.
Yeah, I know. Hey, when I was reading Winter Light, I mean, I kind of got to the point where it's like, oh, well, I got to see what happens here. This is kind of interesting. And it's like, and but unfortunately, a lot of TV episodes do this, where it's like the actual reveal itself isn't that interesting, and so it's kind of like, okay. I guess we'll just carry on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I actually have thought that Winterlight would be fun again as a series or a mini-series.
Winter Light would look very cool as, especially if you could do. I'm picturing the cityscapes of that, and I feel like I know that we are kind of living in an era of CG and kind of that, and I think it's easier to do that than it used to be because let's see. How old are you? Say, is it okay if I ask that question?
Yeah, I'm 44.
Okay, you're 44, so you're old enough to remember like. Let's see. You're probably old enough to remember like. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in like the 70s and 80s. To have a film out that had special effects in it was a rarity.
Yeah.
To have a film out with good special effects was even more of a rarity.
Right.
So,
and what we used to think were really amazing special effects, you look at now, you're like,
yeah. You can go like, at least I can see the imagination of what you're trying to do. The original Ghostbusters sucks, okay, as special effects wise.
But it's a fun movie.
Oh, it's still fun, and yeah, you can still have fun with it. And yeah, we could make it, and they have made it look a lot better now. But sometimes I kind of prefer, like, okay, if you do like, say for example, the way the city of Winterlight would look as a matte painting. If you're not familiar with matte, it's the way they used to do special effects by painting on glass.
Yeah.
And it would look very realistic. A lot of the Star Wars films are done that way. And it was how they did when they wanted a grand scale of things. That's the only way they could do it. Nowadays, they just CG the heck out of it. And there's advantages to that because you can play with it and like go like that. Whereas a matte painting, you're always looking for the spots where they put in the film of it because that's how they could. That's the only way they could do that effect. I feel like this. I mean, there would be a lot of. I sense that there would be a lot of. There'd be a lot of darkness in this, but there would also be a lot of light. I feel like the fact that they live underneath these purple kind of power lines. I think you can kind of use that as kind of a light source.
Yeah.
Use that to kind of make this world, even though that there are some areas in it that are shrouded in darkness. I feel like there are some elements of like this is. You're kind of embracing the wonder and horror of this system. I think you could actually make that kind of a very film noirish kind of fantasy element to that. Honestly, I think that would look good. Yeah, I think the Winterlight series would really be good as a series on Netflix.
Yeah.
If you're listening Netflix, you know where to find her. Or maybe Maybe you don't. But we're not going to give her address here. Well,
No.
Come on.
You can find my website.
Yeah, there you
Contact
go.
me that way.
Yeah, contact sanankolva.com, right? Is that
Yep.
what it is? Really? You got that domain?
Yep.
Hey, good job. Okay.
For some
Yeah.
reason, there aren't a whole lot of other Sanan Kolvas around looking for domains.
You would think that. You would really think there'd be a whole lot of them. But you pounced on that.
I did.
And I'm glad you did. So, all right. Now, speaking of pounce, you got cats, right?
I do. 2.
Okay. You have 2 cats? All right. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right. So, okay. So, big Hollywood comes and calls. Okay, so we want a Netflix series for Sanan. Let's make that happen and stuff like that. Now, okay. Here's a quick big question. If they tried to adapt, let's talk about this book,
Sure.
since bulk of this is about the sequel to it.
Yeah.
But this is the one I'm most familiar with. If they were trying to change something, maybe take something a little out of it, how would you feel about that?
Really depends on what changes they wanted to make.
Okay.
Because there are some elements that, like, if we tried to, say, shoehorn weird relationships, like romantic relationships, into there with the main
That
character.
could happen. Could get a forced love interest going on here. I would do that if I was like trying to make this, especially if I was trying to market this to kids. I would probably do that. I just would. That's just how that would be. The fact that this guy has a fiance and doesn't really see this fiance very often is realistic. I have to think when Chris and I were going to get married, it's not like we could spend every hour together because we both had jobs. That in this world, that's how that works too. So
Now, if they wanted to say give his fiance more time and have more scenes with them and show their relationship more, I would not mind that.
okay.
But if they were trying to build a romantic relationship between him and someone other than his fiance, I would.
Yeah,
I would
I know.
have problems
Kind of
with that.
created like a love triangle kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah, don't do that, guys. Come on. Don't put the love triangle in there if you don't have to. Take it out. Take it out.
Well, and another thing is, you can have relationship triangles that
sure.
are not romantic triangles,
Yeah.
and it can still be very interesting because you can still have a lot of conflict between friends and other people. Like I would say in Trial of the Sky, for example, we have a friendship triangle essentially between Leon and his best friend, and then Kalian, the leader of the stranger, the people he meets. Leon gets along well with both of them, and they pretty much hate each other.
Yeah, I think that's actually, that's a good dynamic then to have.
Yeah.
Okay, you can do that. Hey, no shortage of good relationships in your books here, which honestly a lot of, I don't know, it seems like when you read a lot of fantasy, it's like, well, the world building is really handled well, but the characters are flat as boards. And that's fine if you want to do that. Or it's like, wow, I mean, or sometimes it's like you've embraced too much of the fantasy conventions that it's like, sure, I mean, it's like, sure, the elves are the bourgeoisie and they act like I think the bourgeoisie would act. It's like, they act like the friggin' elves. And, and so when you're reading some bad fantasy, it's like, I could be reading better fantasy right now because that feels like this is a derivative of that.
Yep.
And when I could just, but hey, we all do kind of stuff like that and jive. So, okay. Well, hey, you want to just talk about fantasy for a while? We can talk about some of our favorite
absolutely.
stuff. I mean, I figured that probably would do that.
Yeah.
We could even go live, and maybe we'll do that right after this.
All right.
Right after this great ad.